Hey everybody, how you doing? I'm Spencer, this is Jamie, and together we're Rattlin Cages. So just a little bit about us. We're a couple professional, or at least competitive disc golfers. Jamie's a professional. I didn't call myself that. Avid NASCAR fans, and I don't suppose anybody really cares about our opinion, but we're here to give it to you.
Hell yeah.
So just a little bit about the name. 98, 99, somewhere in there. Dale turned, who'd he turn? Was it Terry Labonte? He turned Terry Labonte at Bristol.
Yep.
They asked him afterwards, they said, something about what were you doing out there? And he said, well, hell, I didn't mean to turn him. I just wanted to rattle his cage a little bit.
Just meant to rattle his cage a bit.
And that's really where we are. We don't plan to turn anybody here, but we sure think we're probably going to rattle some cages with our opinions. You can check us out weekly. We'll talk about a little NASCAR and probably have another show talking a little disc golf.
Mm-hmm.
But let's get started.
Let's do it. I'm psyched.
All right. Well, so let's talk a little bit about NASCAR early season. So far we've had the Clash, we've had Daytona, we've had Atlanta. Give me your favorite part so far about the season that we've had?
Man, honestly, I'm a super speedway guy. You know that. A lot of people know that. It broke my heart that they pretty much just went from the Coliseum to another Coliseum. As historical and special as that place is that they went to, I know they're talking about going back, but my God, I want to see him at Daytona. The people I talk to want to see him back at Daytona. And I just don't think that's a great place to kick off the season and say, hey, let's go watch some NASCAR. And they can't do that. They just drive, I don't know, where they go 90 miles an hour. And it's just like, and then they go from that to day.
You can run track around. But
yeah.
Before I get into that, because I love Bowman Gray. Get into what Speed Weeks used to look like. What are Daytona Speed Weeks to you?
The Speed Weeks used to be, from what I remember as a kid, if I can recall, they were 2 weeks long. You had the Rolex, you had the 24-hour, you had all those fancy car people at Daytona, just full of foreign people, which, you know, I didn't go to that much. I went to a couple of times as a kid. And then you brought in, for the next week, you know, all that American muscle. And then all the stock cars, and then you had the Clash, you had the duels. I mean, you ended up watching the ARCA series, the trucks. You ended up watching the Busch series, and then you had the Winston Cup series. So you could watch 7, 8 races. And now it's like they go running a shit track, and then the season actually starts at Daytona. And I wish they would just bundle it all back up, because that place would be a madhouse again.
I love the opinion. Here's why you're wrong. So first off, there is so much history up there at Bowman Gray. It's in everybody's backyard. It's in the backyard where it started. You can't go to any local place without seeing memorabilia up here. This is where Bill Elliott sat and talked with such and such. This is where Dale and Terry sat and talked. That sort of deal. But man, I thought the whole weekend was great. First off, you get to see these guys driving around a football field, essentially, which is awesome, I think. I don't want it every week. It shouldn't be a points race, but it was great. Then you get to see the actual modified guys, the guys who run that race week in and week out. You get to see them perform out there.
Get a shot.
Well, that was a wonderful nod. You don't get that anywhere else. You certainly didn't get it out in L.A. And that was great. Who was Tim Brown? A couple of those guys, just the greats of the modified world, running around there, ripping it up. And I mean, it's just crazy. I don't know if you've seen Bowman Gray footage before, but these guys are just out there ripping around the football field, and like the safety cars are behind like 2 concrete barriers in the end zones, essentially. I mean, the stands stick out into the track.
It's like your everyday small town track. They brought the big time, and then those guys got to jump in and show what they had. That was kind of cool.
And did you see the pit stop? They drove out behind the stadium and had 5 minutes to work on their car.
The only highlight I saw was Ty Gibbs go airborne off the wheel and then just take it behind the wall.
That was crazy. He wheel hopped. He tried to door slam. I don't remember who that was, but he tried to door slam him, and just it did not work out the way he wanted to.
Yeah, he's an idiot.
And my final pro to that one is my boy won. Chase won. So that's always going to stick out to me.
I think the people needed that. The people of the NASCAR world needed Chase to be back, and I think that they are in for a treat when it comes to COTA this weekend, but we'll get into that in a little bit.
All right, so let's move on to Daytona then. The Daytona 500. buying, selling. It was a good race.
Yes. Daytona was a good race all around. Over the years, they have settled in for the first three, first third of it. They'll go single file or kind of feel everybody out and get used to the air and the temperature and the grip and all that stuff. And this year, they really didn't do that. They kind of mixed it up at the end of every stage. They all kind of went for it. Whereas usually they warm up into the race and then, you kind of get comfortable in the stands for the first 2 hours. And then that the last hour it's going to be cool. But that whole race was a great race. And the rest of that is just...
Get into the caution controversy right now because there's a couple controversies to get into.
I'm riled up. I was riled up out there.
All right, so let's set it up. So for years and years and years, the rule has been that when they throw the caution on the last lap, that ends it. You take the white flag, it's the final lap, and the next flag ends it. If that's a yellow, that ends it. If it's the checker, that ends it. We had some I would say abysmal cautions thrown in the duels and the Xfinity race going into the 500.
Yep.
So if you recall, in the duel, they wrecked behind the leaders getting ready to take the white flag. And they said, I can't remember who was leading at the time. Maybe that was the one that Bubba won. But they said that he had crossed the line to take the white flag before they threw the checker, wrecking behind it. So instead of lining it back up and running again, it just ended there. Essentially, the white flag was the checker flag in that case.
That is
so... It was an ugly scenario.
That is so terrible for the sport of NASCAR.
I agree.
Absolutely terrible. Absolutely terrible.
So then they did similar in the Xfinity race. There was a late caution somewhere early on the back stretch. There's been a lot of racing since then. But it ended under caution as well. And they were basically like, I suppose, I can't speak for the boys. But all that to say, they came down to Daytona, the Daytona 500, the granddaddy of them all. And as they started wrecking on the back stretch, pirouetting around down to turn 3, they let the leaders race around to take the checker. And it all looked like we were back to 1989 again, racing back to the checker. So there we are. Everybody thinks, all right, this is old school NASCAR again. We're racing back to the checker. Let the boys have fun. And then we get to Atlanta. There we are, sitting in the stands.
Which is
wide finish again.
Which is the hottest track on the circuit by far now.
And we're going to get into that. But there we are, staring down another 3-wide finish for the second one in 2 years. Last year, we got the same thing in the spring. And I mean, I wish I had a camera on my face at that point. When they threw that, when I'm just watching them, I'm like, oh, here they go. Who do we have? We have Bell, Hocevar, and Larson racing it down into the dog leg.
Mm-hmm.
And then all of a sudden they just let up. I'm just like, I'm taken aback because I'm not watching the back stretch. I don't have a clue what's going on back there. But all of a sudden I know that the great racing that I'm watching isn't happening anymore. So that kind of leaves us in a strange place. So you've got some people, you've got some big names. Denny Hamlin, Kenny Wallace, several big names are calling and saying that that's the way it's got to be, that's the safety of the matter.
Yeah.
So I want to pose some options to you, Jamie, and I don't think what you got to say. So I got them written down right here. So we can race back to the line, throw it back to the early days of NASCAR, safety be damned. We're going to bring it back to the checker. We can have it the way it is now, that after the white flag, final lap, caution ends it. However it is, that's how we're lining it up. We got great lasers, we got good timing, we know what it is. Or I've heard that we could just say, well, forget the white flag. If we wreck before we take the checker, let's line it back up, have a green-white checker. So there's some pros and cons to that. What's your take?
Man, I go to every super speedway race within 300 miles of my house, and I had an entirely full beer when that caution came out, and I threw it on the ground so hard. They ripped our hearts out, dude. Side that I come from is they are making so much money. They signed the dotted line. They know what sport they signed up to play. Safety is not always guaranteed in a $3,000 box of steel. They know that. But they also know that they're in the entertainment industry, my friend. We paid to be in the stands. We paid to be entertained. You need to entertain us, damn it. You don't cancel the race and say, oh, he's in the lead when the yellow flag came out. Safety first. I guess we're just going to call it a night. Worst case scenario, you rack those bitches back up and you don't stop the race until somebody finishes under green and the checker flag is seen. That's what I want to pay for. Hell with that safety second, third, and fourth BS. You're not always going to be safe, but you do have to always entertain. And that's how I feel.
I hear you on that. So I don't think we're ever going to go back to racing to the checkered flag. NASCAR admitted that was a mistake from the beginning at the 500. All we're looking for is some consistency. As far as running the green white checkered till Kingdom Come, did you watch Nashville last year?
I did not watch Nashville, but I just want to say before we get past this that if for some crazy reason the owner of that racetrack of Atlanta Motor Speedway that I spent thousands of dollars to attend over the years sees this podcast, I know for damn sure that he threw something harder than I threw my beer when they threw the caution, because he saw what was about to be the second 3-wide finish in a row at the line coming to fruition, and NASCAR just took his shit all over it and gave it to Christopher Bell. Anyway, I digress. No, I did not see Nashville.
Nashville had 6 green-white checkers back to back to back. And everybody was running out of gas. And somehow, Joey Logano, I still think I don't see any way. It reminded me of some old school stuff. I think he must have had a 10-mile fuel line in there. Because he was supposed to run out 2 laps before the first.
He had that with his, he had the 10-mile fuel line and his web glove hanging out the window.
That's it. That's exactly what he did. God, I can't stand that guy. That's for another episode, though. But, I mean, you basically just had yellow flag after yellow flag because people are running out of gas. They go to get started at the green flag. They don't have the go-go juice. It ends right there. It's another yellow flag. Take it around, boys. We're going to line it back up. So I didn't like that. But I got an option for you. So as much nonsense as I think the F1 competition is, I think this is one that they've got right. When something small, something minor happens on part of an F1 track, and I get that they're not running ovals, but they have sections in their tracks. And if you get a single yellow, it is for that section. And it just says you need to slow down, check yourself, know the danger is coming up, and you cannot overtake there. You can't pass in that area. So to me, I think we all agree, or at least want to agree, that our drivers are just as good. So are we really saying that they can't abide by that? That we can't have the guys in front of the wreck bring it on around and the guys behind slow it down? To me, you stop it, fine. If we want to freeze it behind the wreck, freeze it behind the wreck. Let the boys race to the finish. Because in both Daytona, well, I'll take that back. Daytona, old William Byron kind of squirted on through there. But at least in Atlanta, it had nothing to do with the leaders. Mm-hmm. Barry had been running up front all day long, but he wasn't in front when he wrecked.
Nope.
So maybe let the boys in front of the wreck finish it out. And I don't see any downside to that. And I really haven't heard that many people talking for it. Well, me, you've got the single yellow, freeze it in that section. If you're in that section, freeze it. You're done. Double yellow, if it's egregious, if it's a safety thing, if they can't if they're gonna cause safety issues coming back to the line, fine. Freeze it there. That's a double yellow in F1. But as much as we talk about the pansy racing that goes on in F1, to me, they've got the better way of doing the yellows.
So to contradict and why I don't think, as I can see your point of view on the F1 and trying to translate that over to our stock cars, but why that will definitely not work on super speedways is if a wreck happens in turn 3, before they even decide what level of caution to throw, they're already at the finish line. So it's like, how could you dictate the caution light, a 2-stage caution light, because it's going to be gone. It happens so fast. Now on an F1 track, it's humongous, and it's like turns, and there's 50 goddamn turns everywhere. They'll be like, okay, that's the turn 1 mile away where we got a stage 2 caution, whatever the hell that means for the Formula 1 guys.
Well, I'm glad you asked, because I've got a dead fire way of knowing that these days.
I bet you do.
If Ryan Preece is involved. If the astronaut Ryan Preece is involved, you need to throw the double cautions. Everybody needs to freeze because some stuff is going down.
Pick your heads up and look up in the sky.
Oh my gosh, that poor boy. He was shaking after that last one. And man, I don't know. For those of you out there who haven't thought about it before, I love the physics of the whole thing. We've worked a whole lot on the front end and how they just crumpled up, and we've got the safer barrier, they crumple up. We got energy just dissipating everywhere. As far as side impacts, front impacts, there's not much these race cars can't take. But that right there, the pancake motion, there is nothing in those race cars designed to take that. And he
Rock
took
solid.
a hard one.
Yeah. Yeah.
Boy,
Even the hits that you see on TV that don't look like much for people that don't watch racing, the drivers will tell you that hurts like 7 out of 10. And it's like, yeah, I'm still hurting from that last week. And it just shows them hitting the wall a little bit because they're so solid.
Yeah.
And I mean, we went because we go to Atlanta every year. And after the race, we like to shimmy on up the track where the gates open. And that retaining wall, it feels like a steel barrier. Like you cannot move it. But when a car hits it, it just kind of folds up like a piece of Charmin. So you think it's soft, but it ain't soft.
It looks like styrofoam on TV. It is not. Golly. Yeah, that is crazy.
Now that we talked about the cautions, just so I can get this off my chest because I still get pissed off about it. We got to talk about Carson Hocevar. Dude, he's a villain. Why is he a villain? And why is it so good for everybody? I love it. He reminds me of a younger Kyle Busch, except for Kyle Busch was winning a lot of races very early, but he was also pissing people off while doing it. All of a sudden, we got a new guy that comes in. He's fast. If you're in his way and you don't move, he's going to move you. All of a sudden, because he's a no-name individual, people get pissed off. But if it was Kyle Larson that pushed somebody out of the way, then he was just, that's Kyle Larson trying to win races. He's pretty good, I love that Carson Hocevar, he didn't stand for that shit. I would just simply put, it's hard to say that, but you have to say it. If that was Dale Earnhardt back in the day, that was just Dale Earnhardt. He's trying to win races. Everybody's trying to win races. Why aren't you doing it? At the same time, hey, everybody on this racetrack is trying to win. You don't like what I'm doing? When the race is over, we all park in the same spot. Come see me. You have something to say afterwards? Come see me. Come see me. And that's pretty much what he said. I'm not here to play on the playground with these guys. I'm here to win the races. And he pretty much just gave them the middle finger, which I love.
You're right about that. I got two takes on that. First off, people love the Intimidator because he's passed. People booed the nonsense out of Dale Earnhardt everywhere he went. That man got hate like Denny Hamlin on steroids. I love him, but we first of all have to acknowledge that. My point on Carson Hocevar, what I think separates him from whoever we're going to make the comparison with, whether it's Ross Chastain, whether it's Kevin Harvick, whether it's the Intimidator himself. This is the only way he got here. I haven't seen the talent. To me, he wrecked his way through the Truck Series. He reared people into the wall through the Truck Series. That's how he won his championship. And for some reason, Spire decided to give him a ride. Wasn't for lack of talent. Hell, Corey Haim is still sitting down in the Truck Series waiting for a ride. But they bring him, it's been nothing but the same ever since. So to me, I don't know. I feel like Ross, I feel like Kyle, I feel like all these boys showed raw racing talent. To me, I see raw wrecking talent.
If it gets him the W, who gives a shit?
Well, you're right. Now, I will say it's kind of comic gold seeing Ross Chastain having words with him in the infield.
Yeah. I keep hearing other people say that, if Carson keeps going on about his ways, he's going to have a really hard time at work. Well, sometimes you have hard days at work. And they said, well, sometimes, you're going to piss people off. Well, where we park at the end of the race. He doesn't care. I don't care. I'm a fan.
That's right. And I mean, especially when you need to jump up on the hood of a car to punch him in the face.
He is kind of big.
Young man.
Yep.
Now, I will say, after the race, he was really, for all intents and purposes, apologizing to Rick Hendrick for not pushing Kyle Larson at the end.
Who cares?
Yeah, but to me, that's kind of like if I was at the gun range and I let 4 strays go. All right, I just let 4 strays go down the line, and then I apologize to you for not doing a proper press check before I step to the line. It's inconsequential at that point. What are we talking about?
He's a better man than me because I would have simply said it's not my job to push somebody else to win the race.
Yeah, well, he knows where his next job may be.
A good point.
That is the truth on that.
Good
All
point.
right, so we've covered it. I mean, like I think Carson Hocevar has a bright future in front of him.
Oh yeah.
It's rubbed me the wrong way a little bit. And I mean, every time he would come down the line, we were sitting there going, "Watch that 77. There is trouble around him."
It was either the 77 or Recky Stenhouse.
Oh my God. Well, let's just jump into that. I was about to go into what Kyle Busch said about Hocevar. So just real quick, did you hear what Kyle Busch said over the radio at the end of stage one?
Oh, he said, I don't care if I wreck the whole damn field. Tell that 77 that he's gone or something.
Yeah, and notice what he didn't do. So
Race good.
Inside, he's got some respect for the kid. But
Oh,
yeah,
I'm sure he can see himself in him. If I can, he sure as hell can.
yep. But the old Recky Spinhouse, man, I just, is it even worth talking about at this point? Like, I want to like him. I do. I relate with him in a lot of ways. Like, he's my age. I feel like he's gotten the short end of the stick in a lot of ways. He's towed the line for the company. But man, it's always him. It's always him. And this week, a lot of people are blaming him for putting Chase into the wall. Which I've watched that one back. I still think that was Briscoe getting loose under him and just chain reaction up the way. But I've heard some opinions that matter a lot more than me.
Yeah.
Talking about how he calls that one.
Well, you gotta, when it comes to those kind of things, you kind of have to listen to what the drivers say and kind of listen to that because they know who got loose, who could run where, who wasn't running good where, and why he was running there, knowing he would slip and slide. So, I kind of take their words of wisdom on that one. But yes, at any super speedway, if you want to see an accident, watch the 47.
Yeah, all day long because that's where it's going to be. So speaking of super speedway accidents, let's talk about old Kyle Larson's accident coming down with what was that about? No, that wasn't 20 to go. That was right there at the end. 5, 6 to go, somewhere in there. Kyle Larson, basically, as he's coming around turn 2, I really think that that's the spot. Like, if I could set up an RV somewhere, it would be right there above turn 2. Because that is where that turn narrows down into the
Yeah, it gets real tight.
That is where the action happens. I mean, it is just a pucker moment over and over and over again. So I'm not going to go on and on about the wreck itself and Larson getting into one of the fastest cars on the track, took up Blaney at that Cindric at that point, right? I get them confused now that their paint schemes are all crossed over. He was in the Menards yellow. But regardless, coming up, and I mean, they've talked a lot this week about how he's one of the best at putting people in bad positions. He's really good at putting people in positions where they just don't really have a choice but to lift. And Cindric didn't lift. He kept on trucking. So, like, we all know how that ended. He ended his day, put him into the wall. But what I want to point out, go back and watch on replay. The DBC boys are pointing this out. My boy William Byron, what was he doing? He was flying up the track at that point. Even if Larson didn't touch him, he was about to wipe Cindric out. They were both about to be gone. Like, it is the wildest thing I've ever seen. The angle he's coming up at is just, there was nowhere for him to go.
It gets skinny very quickly.
It looked like a hit job. It wasn't, but my God, when you play that back in replay, it's just like, you've got Larson pinching him up against the wall and then just, here comes Byron. I'm going to finish it for you, Big Daddy. Yeah, that's a fun one. Go back and watch that.
I'm still just pissed off how it ended. I think it's going to take me a while to get over that.
Yeah, and then, again, Seabell coming out of nowhere to win it.
Yeah, we were talking about that with like 2 laps to go. We just looked at each other because you and I are glued to the cars on every turn. We are watching everything. And then it's like 2 laps to go. Christopher Bell. What the hell's he doing up there? He just come out of nowhere like Kevin Harvick from the good old days.
Yep, jeez. Yeah, that's 2 Atlanta races in a row that I felt like have been phenomenal races. Like,
incredible.
Absolutely. Like, the best it's what we want all the super speedways to look like right now. And I'm just not sure how many other places I would rather go watch a race than Atlanta Motor Speedway right now. But man, these last 2 endings, like, I was, in the fall, I was hyped up. It was wonderful racing. Had Bo there, had my little boy. We were enjoying every minute of it. We had been in the grandstands. We were back on the infield. And then Joey Logano wins. And it's just like,
Yankees coming down to our southern states, taking our checkered flags.
God, I got to drive home after this. And then yesterday, our 3-wide finish, we're just like, yeah. Wait, why did they stop? Why they're not racing anymore? What's going on?
I think Atlanta is the hottest track on the circuit by far, because, to touch on the fact that you said it's what everybody wants a super speedway to be, at Talladega and Daytona, a crap car with no speed can win. A crap car with no handling and no speed can win. But Atlanta, a good car with speed and handling, can use all of that to their advantage in many different scenarios to put themselves in place to potentially be in the right spot when they throw that caution flag to end the race. And then, bam, they could win. But at Talladega and Daytona, you're in a pack. The air's just sucking you around, and you're going to go where you're going to go. But in Atlanta, handling was a major thing this past race, and you saw it because the best cars were there.
That's right. And man, I feel like Kyle Busch and Austin Cindric were just that far off. Man, their setups over there were just that far off. Because did you see Busch in the Truck Series race? He was toying with them. It was like he'd let somebody get in front just to dive bomb him into turn 1. And it was just like, I don't need your help with the air. I can do this on my own. I'm going to just drive past you. I might let you back in the lead for a minute. But really, it was just like he was fooling around waiting for Sunday. It was his race the entire time.
Yep.
While
Absolutely.
we're on the truck race, why don't you speak on you and Mason's experience with William Sawalich and the folks?
Oh, yeah. So William and his mother, Stacy, you and I met them at Daytona, the 500, 3 years ago, I believe. And it was a rather odd happenstance because I wear a big black 3 painted on my chest in honor of Dale Earnhardt, just a thing I do at every race. I needed a Sharpie. I still don't recall what it was for, but I needed a Sharpie, and they happened to walk by, and I asked them for a Sharpie, and she said, "Oh, would you like my son to sign something?" And I was like, "No, I just need to use it." So this crazy, awkward exchange turned into an incredible friendship and partnership with our foundation. And the next time we saw each other was last week at Atlanta. The people from Joe Gibbs, Tricon Garage, and the people from Starkey with Sound Gear, and Stacy Williams' mom sent us over some passes for me and Mason, my son, who's got Williams syndrome and autism, to come spend the day with Tricon Garage, William, and the team at Sound Gear with their Truck and Xfinity series. So we were already going to the race. I just happened to send Stacy a text and say, "Hey, we're going to be there. I'm glad William had a birthday. He's old enough to race the super speedway. We're all psyched." And she said, "Hey, I'll get you in touch with Gibbs, and they'll get you guys some passes." And the Tricon Garage and the people at Sound Gear dedicated their entire day to just give Mason this inclusive experience of just being loved on by people in the world of motorsports. They put him in Williams' truck. He didn't think much of it because he didn't see it, he doesn't know his $300,000 vehicle sitting there, but he was flipping switches and stuff, and I was like, whoa, and they were like, "It's cool, the power's off, no problem." It was everything for Mason. And then we got to stand on pit road and sing Mason's favorite song, which is a national anthem. The Jets flew over us. William got into his truck, and Mason gave him a fist bump right before he put the steering wheel on, and yeah, it was a great time. And William gave us hats and all kinds of stuff we didn't really need, but he was showing Mason love, and the whole team was. And man, we're just so thankful to have a friendship like that. William's such a young kid with such a promising future. God, the kid tore up the ARCA series and jumped straight into trucks. And if I recall, he had a good finish at Daytona, his first super speedway in a truck. Yeah, good to see him. He's got a good head on his shoulders, and I'm really excited to see what he has to show the world, because he's young, but he's got some good potential, and they got big hearts because they made the day pretty special for my kid.
Man, absolutely. And I don't know, maybe I just didn't pay attention to ARCA. Like, I feel like the only time I paid attention was when I was at the races where they were racing. But last year's Arco series between him and Zillich, Swalich, Zillich, I mean, it was
That was fun.
TV every time. It was awesome. But yeah, I'm so glad y'all got to go down there and spend some time with them. And then, yeah, I didn't realize until you were telling me that his mom is basically who does all the ear molds for basically the entire series now. Danny Hamlin was talking about that on his podcast just this week. That was pretty awesome.
They're amazing. She made me a pair while we were there. And, being in the garage right next to the vehicles, you hear everything. And then she put the stuff in, and it was just like, you're in a whole nother dimension. Everything is quiet. And then she takes it out, and then you can hear everything again. It's like, wow, I've been reborn. It's amazing. It's the sound that I can hear.
Yeah, my ears are still ringing from last week.
Gosh, yeah. Yeah, it was a good time. Man, we watched the video today. I watched the video again today just because it's so special of Mason singing the national anthem. And, he's got some William shirts now, and I always ask him every day just so he remembers what William does. I said, hey, what does your friend William do? And he says, NASCAR. So William will always have a friend in Mason to watch him on Fridays and Saturdays now, and soon to come on Sundays.
Man, you said he didn't think much of the truck while he was in it. Knowing Mason, he sure does love those trucks once they're fired up.
Oh God, yeah.
Yeah. Oh yeah. They're running 500 horsepower, 200 decibels. That's Mason's cup of tea.
Yes, he had plenty jumping for joy moments. So with Williams syndrome, he likes to feel the vibration of the vehicles as they come by. It's not so much watching them and seeing what transpires with the race, but when the cars come around turn 4, he'll actually turn his head and feel the vibration through his feet. And as the cars go by him, he jumps up and down because the vibration is what gets him excited. And the smile is what gets me excited. So I'm all for it.
I was about to say, as a father, like, what a feeling that has to be.
Yeah, it's pretty special.
When was you took him to his first race? Was it last year or the year before?
Oh, his first race was the July race, or the August race now. Sorry, we lost the Pepsi 400. Was the August race in Daytona last year. Okay. And that's when I knew he liked the vibration, because I sat him up away from the fence thinking that it was going to be too loud, but he wanted to go to the closest. So he's pointed down to the fence. So I said, okay, we'll go down to the fence. And that's when he started running up and down the aisles every time the cars would come by.
And he's hooked. I love it.
Yeah, he loved it.
I mean, we're going to have to do a whole episode on the foundation and everything y'all do over there with Miracle in the Woods. We're going to have to put that in one of the upcoming episodes, because that's
for sure
really important to what you're about. Everything that we're kind of about. That's awesome. All right, well, we're running way over the time that we were thinking about going, so let's go ahead and break down COTA.
Yeah, let's talk COTA.
And what we're looking forward to is Circuit of the Americas. All right, so the first thing I have written down here is the track changes that they got going on. So that long little stretch up to the hairpin turn and then back down. I guess this up at the top, and then the long straightaway coming back down. Gone. Blew it up. They're calling it the National Circuit. And I watched a drive-through today with Ross Chastain and SVG. And even the little bit that we thought was going to be a hairpin going into it is just a 90. So thoughts on that? They've cut it down. It's a shorter race. Excuse me, it's not a shorter race. What they've done is they've given the people there more viewing time of the cars coming around, which I respect. But what do you think? What are we going to see from the layout at COTA?
So I'll be honest with you and the people. I tend to not watch a road course. I'm telling you, my heart is with super speedways. I'll watch it, but I am not glued to the TV. I will, watch it here and there, play with my kids, stuff like that. But what I do love is the first turn, because that thing is chaotic. And especially coming down to the last stage, and it's a green-white checkered, people are just going to dive bomb the shit out of everybody and use them as a guardrail and just shimmy on by there. But the one thing I remember about the long shoot that I hate that they took was that was a good passing zone for people who had good speed in their cars. Now it's like, if I have speed, so what? I mean, yeah, you can use your speed throughout the race, but that's a guaranteed passer too.
Yep. And I mean, so in my mind, I won't go too deep in the woods. We don't have a diagram or anything to show the people. But if they were throwing in that hairpin at the end, I was like, okay, so you preserve the passing zone. You're just taking out the part that the people can't see. You're giving the people who are in person, all this extra laps of cars going by. but at least you're like preserving the passing zone. But just having it as a 90-degree, I'm not sure what I think about it.
Yeah.
Now, one thing I will say, kind of going back into the race last year, track limit violations were a huge deal all day long. Like, that's why you just have people going to the back constantly over that. So basically what it is you're allowed to have two wheels off on the inside of the track. Going through the S's is where the biggest deal was. And it's so hard when you're following back to back in stock cars to see where exactly these turns are apexing. So you would have people missing the apex of a turn, and NASCAR sitting there just staring with their cameras. It was like they're just looking. Like, who am I going to get this time? Oh, there's William Byron. I got him. But nobody's gaining an advantage, and then they've got to serve a pass-through penalty, send him to the back. And we know you're not climbing up from the back of a road course. So to me, what are we doing penalizing people for things that, like, they're not gaining an advantage from? Via the one and only Bob Pockras, he's kind of walking through some options here. He says, you could just do only if you gain an advantage doing it. Do we penalize it? I can see that.
Sort of like passing below the yellow line on a super speedway. It's only frowned upon if you gain an advantage.
Right. Just use a little common sense with it. That makes a lot of sense to me. He also said that a possibility is just giving a warning, all right? First time you've got a warning. But then where you run into issue there is you're coming down to the last few laps. So
you only need to do it once. Yeah.
Right. So then say you've already had a warning and I haven't had a warning. Well, I'm going to cut that corner and take your ass on out. And I'll see you at the finish line, friend. Like you said earlier, you know where I park.
Come see me.
Come see me. And then the other one's a stop and go, like what we do at the bus stop at the Roval and stuff like that. Just like bring it to a stop, take it on through. But man, I don't know. There aren't a whole lot of good options there, but I do think that we're just way too rigid on something that's, at the end of the day, it's hurting more people than it's saving. Like, what are we doing? And I don't remember a whole lot last year. It's been a whole year ago, but other than the pileups in turn one, every time they would restart, that's the one thing I remember. You would hear over and over again them come over the radio, such and such serving a pass-through penalty for track limits violations in the S's. It's just like, my God, it's getting excessive on that. So that's something I'm hoping to see changed. Let's see, what do we got?
I think that's just the NASCAR thing, man. NASCAR just needs to maybe just sit back in their seat a little bit and watch the race transpire. Not worry about whose two wheels were 6 inches over this red and white checkered curb. Get the frick out of here, dude. NASCAR, sit in your seat. Let the folks do what they're paid to do. Drive the car. Enjoy what you're watching, the show you're putting on for us. And for God's sakes, don't end a road course with a caution flag.
Please don't. Oh my God. Going all the way around Watkins Glen, doing a whole lap. Just, hey guys, hope y'all enjoy the race. Hope it was good for you, my gosh. All right, so let's pick a winner. I'm going to run down for you the winners of the road courses last year. Last year at COTA, we had William Byron winning. Like I said, lots of track limits issues going on. He even got hit with one. But again, Chase Elliott was probably the fastest car, and he got hit with a late pass through, had to serve. And then we went to Sonoma. Kyle Larson won at Sonoma. Chicago Street Race. Alex Bowman won that one.
You notice anything in common with those three cars?
Do they drive for the same person? All right, then we went to the Glen, where Chris Buescher won, finally got one. And then back to the Roval, where Kyle Larson took it down again. So 4 out of the 5 we had of the Hendricks boys taken down. Now, a lot of people will point out that there were a lot of weird circumstances that brought them to the front, that they weren't the top dog in any of those. But here we are, kind of like we could talk about the super speedways. Penske Fords have been the fastest cars in the first weeks, and they have not come away with the dub. So who are you going with this week at COTA?
And I gotta say, I am a big Allmendinger fan just because I like him as a person, and that man is a fighter in the race car. Not only that, but on a road course, he is better than most.
Yep.
I feel like the dud that we're gonna see is the guy that everybody thinks is going to explode. I feel like Connor Zilic is going to have a god-awful race. I feel like he's just going to make a couple poor decisions that in the Cup Series, a couple poor decisions will either put you out of the race or towards the back. I don't think he's going to have smooth sailing like he's used to having, but
Wasn't he
I
in
have
that
no
group
doubt
at
that it's going
Watkins
to be
Glen
a
last
Hendrick.
year?
What?
At Watkins Glen last year, wasn't he in that group that under caution, just, you're supposed to have the bus stop where you go around the little chicane.
Oh, they just went
There's
through.
like four that just drove straight through. Like, wait, I can't do that?
And everybody else that went through got a penalty. Yeah.
Yep.
But I think that going back to your winner of the clash, I think this is Chase Elliott's best shot to put that number 9 Napa Chevy into victory lane again.
I agree, and man, he's itching for it. He's had a fast car the last 2 weeks and has not finished clean. Man, I was saying I don't think he's finished the Atlanta race clean since he won. I think he won, then he got hurt, and I think that's like 4 in a row that he's been roughed up in some way in Atlanta. I can't
He
see
won.
my guy.
He won, went snowboarding, broke his leg, and then he sucked. He hasn't sucked. He's just been on the short end of the stick.
Yep.
Of the Recky Stenhouse stick.
That's what you get when you're a Georgia boy going skiing. All right, but I'm going to fade. So I'm going to fade my boy Chase this week, and I'm going to take the chalk. I'm going with SVG. I think Trackhouse was onto something when they signed him. Like, as long as we're going to have this winning in deal with playoffs, signing a road track specialist, road course specialist, that's what I'm looking for. We're pushing an hour here. You got to forgive me.
Okay.
But I mean, like, signing a road course specialist, that just makes sense to me. And I mean, Trackhouse, that's my favorite, other than Hendricks. That's my favorite up-and-coming team, I guess B team, if you will. Love seeing what they've got going on. So look for Trackhouse and SVG to come in strong. And yeah, I'm like you. I could fade the 87 with Zilich. I know he's a Trackhouse guy.
Yeah.
But if I had to pick a team, Trackhouse, you've got SVG, Zilich, and Daniel Suarez all in this, and Ross Chastain. So you've got 4 guys that could show up and win a road course at any moment.
It's a good story. I like the story for the kid. I just think it's a little too soon.
What do you think? Does he have a winning tradition yet? Like all the other ones at Trackhouse, you got Ross Chastain with the watermelon, Daniel Suarez with the pinata, and Shane Van Gisbergen kicks the rugby ball. What's Zilich going to do if he wins?
He's American. He might wave a flag around. I don't know.
We'll see. So is Ross.
Yeah, I know but he's a watermelon farmer by trade. I don't think Connor Zilich is public about, like, I grow zucchini for a living. I don't. Oh, man. Either way, I think we're in for a good show. If NASCAR realizes they're in the entertainment industry, I feel like they're going to give us a good one this week. Either way, we'll have plenty to talk about next week. Man, I personally want to know if there's anybody watching or will watch. I want to know what the president of the owner of Atlanta Motor Speedway did when that caution came out, because I know it was something that he was pissed off.
I bet it was, too.
Has to be.
When we were driving out, I mean, they always are, but those jets were already taking off before we could get out. And I have to imagine his was the first one out of there. I'll see you boys in Texas. I'm done with this nonsense. All right. Well, any closing thoughts?
No, I'm just, man, it's a bitter pill to swallow. Atlanta's close to me. Daytona's close to me, and I love Talladega. But yeah, the Atlanta pill is tough to swallow. The NASCAR fans have been gutted by the NASCAR officials, and I think they have some work to do. They have some work to do on me. I mean, I spend thousands and thousands of dollars every year to go to NASCAR races, and they have royally pissed me off. So, yeah, give us a good showing at COTA.
We're already set up for spring in Atlanta. Boy, that's going to be a good episode here. I promise that.
Live on the scene.
That's it. All right, well, guys, that's all we got for this week. Join us next week when we will break down what happened in COTA. We'll go over a little bit of what we see as where the class should be moving. If maybe Bowman Gray could take the All-Star race potentially, I want to talk about that a little bit. We'll see what's going on down there at COTA. But that's all we've got today. Hopefully rattled a few cages. If we didn't, we'll try harder next time, y'all. But I'm Spencer. That's Jamie. That's all we got for you. Take it easy.